Welcome to the comeback season, where we have real conversations about fueling your body, rebuilding strength, and stepping back into the life you were meant to live. Whether you've been caring for kids, aging parents, or just lost sight of your own needs, we see you. And this is your season to rise. Hello, my name is Nichole McLeod with Healthy Mind, Healthy Body. I'm a mindset and fitness coach and the author of I Started on a Tuesday. I know what it feels like to lose yourself in the chaos and still hold on to the hope that something better is coming.
And I'm Christi Kelsey from Christi Counts Macros, nutrition and mindset coach and food freedom advocate. I've worked with lots of women who felt stuck, restricted, and unsure where to even begin. Together, we're bringing you honest conversations, healing truths, and real strategies to help you rise again, physically, mentally, and emotionally, whether you've hit rock bottom or you're just tired of putting yourself last. This space is for you because this is your comeback season and it starts right now.
Welcome back to the Comeback Holiday Edition. Today, we're breaking down something almost every woman feels at this point in the season, that motivation dip, that why can't I make myself do anything feeling.
And I'm Christi. If you're dragging right now, it doesn't mean you're falling off. It usually means you're tired, overstimulated, and under-supported. Today, we want to help you understand why motivation drops this time of year and how to bring it back without relying on willpower.
This is such a good topic because I think every human being on planet Earth in the month of December struggles a little bit with what they feel their willpower should be. So I think it's a great starting point of why motivation crashes after stress and why that dopamine depletion effect actually is a real thing. And if people realize that motivation actually is the second step that helps push you along the way, it's not, you're never going to feel motivated, especially in this season.
That's right. And a lot of that uh, feeling of being unmotivated is how we're fueling our bodies. Many
Yes.
of us underfuel, which creates our bodies to have low energy and we feel tired. And when our bodies don't have enough energy, when we're not giving it enough food,
Mm-hmm.
then one of the first things it does is slow everything down. And we have this subconscious desire not to overextend ourselves. And then we might feel like we're lazy. But
Yes.
it's not that we're lazy, but most of the time it's just that we're under eating or not eating properly.
You know, the first thing that popped in my head when you said that is the reality to motivation is that action comes before motivation.
Mhm.
No human being on planet Earth feels like doing the thing necessarily that they, especially if they've never done it before or it's not something that they are strong at. But the reality is when you don't fuel your body, it affects your thoughts. And we know with cognitive behavioral therapy, it's the thought comes, then the emotion comes, and then the behavior comes. So that emotion drives the behavior. Well, if the thought is fueled by what you're eating, how you're, what you're giving your body and the environment you're in, stress levels, all these things, if the thing that affects your thought affects your emotion, foundationally, it makes sense that we'd want to start there.
That's right. And if you have any kind of health goals,
Mm-hmm.
and this time of year, there are a lot of very high calorie, high carb, sugary treats
Delicious.
at the ready. And it's so tempting, but that could be affecting how you feel right now.
And it's also interesting that it's such an important part that if you do indulge, that you don't beat yourself up for it,
Right.
because and it's such a slippery slope between the guilt of it and don't forget it, throw in the towel, have it anyway, versus that, that beating yourself up. But when you beat yourself up, you're increasing your cortisol levels, right? You're kind of messing with thought that leads to the emotion, right? That leads to the behavior.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do in those moments, so to prevent you from eating even more or to indulging more than you want to, is to just kind of give yourself a little bit of grace in that moment and
Right.
understand that sometimes motivation for all of us in the holidays is difficult, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I personally have different health goals during the holidays
Mm-hmm.
than I do a lot of the other times of the year, just because there's so much abundance this time of year, and it would be torture to be in a calorie deficit during the holidays. So I try to, and I've said this before, I try to increase my calories a little bit. I encourage my clients to do the same, just so that you have a little more leeway when you do
Mm-hmm.
decide to indulge.
Absolutely. And you know what? Plan for it.
Yeah.
Do well on the other days. If you know that you're having a thing and you want to just relax and eat what you want, well, do good the rest of the day or, earlier in the week. Or there's so many things that you can do to balance that. But I think the biggest thing to understand is that you're never going to feel like ready to eat healthy over the holidays, and you're going to want to be motivated to do it, but it's really an action thing. You have to plan it and you have to be prepared for it and be prepared for the humanness in you. And we talked a little bit about this, the stress levels at Christmas time, the holidays. There's a lot of it, good stress, bad stress, but we have to remember that any stress is still going to raise our cortisols. It's still going to get those adrenalines going. And
Hmm.
we all know that family can kind of hit home the hardest for anybody, especially if they've had any sort of conflict. And
Hmm.
those stress levels can feed into it. So I think it's really important that we understand and give ourselves grace and do the best we can, but just understand that there's going to be some bad days, but to
Right.
stay overall 80-20 rule.
Yeah. And I think what I've seen from my clients is that there's a big difference when you choose something intentionally and you
Yep.
plan for it than it just happened to me. I showed up, I had no choice, and so you react instead of intentionally choose. And it's such a different mindset,
Mhm.
and it's a different result. Even if you ate the same thing, you're going to feel differently. You're going to tell yourself a different story at the end of it if you went in with intention.
That's a good point. And that really has, you can add on to that a little bit by talking about, micro habit stacking, is that if those moments arise, have the counterpart of it. So habit stacking, when I do this, this is the thing I add on to it, just a little change.
Hmm.
Because if we try to change too much, especially over the holidays when it's the stressful times, our brains aren't going to handle it. And you are going to indulge when you don't want to. But if
Right.
you just do little bits, like little habits, okay, so if I do indulge, I'm going to counter that with protein.
Yeah.
I'm going to counter that with fiber, and I do that hack all the time. If I want to
Yeah.
indulge, I just make sure that I also habit stack. Okay, so I want to do this thing, but I'm going to stack on something to that that has nutrition in it. So I'm going to make sure I have my nutrients, but then my body, my metabolism is going to accept that differently because I now have the fiber and the protein, and my body's going to be able to manage it differently.
Right. I heard a term the other day that I had not heard before, and I just love it. It said naked carbs. So don't eat naked carbs, just straight carbs by themselves. You want to pair that with some other
I
macronutrient
love
like
it.
fats or um, protein. I would put protein at a higher priority than fat.
100%. Honestly,
You're
protein fiber for me, that's my go-to. I
Yes,
don't know, you're
protein
the
and
nutritionist, but
yeah, and then the fiber as well, because the fiber helps slow down the digestion and it allows your body to absorb the nutrients slower
Mhm.
than this quick sugar rush.
So tell me, so protein first, then fiber, or is it kind of good to put a little bit of fiber with the protein combined, or what's the best?
Well, preferably your carbs, whatever you're eating, will have protein or fiber in it, and then you pair that
Oh, there you go.
with protein. But I know there's a lot of cookies around, and that's the fat carb combination. And I'm not I'm not saying just go hog wild with cookies, but if you can pair it with something like nuts or a cheese stick or some beef jerky even, something that's not straight carbs. That
And
is,
another hack, that 10-minute walk after you eat. Go
yes.
for a walk after you eat your meal. That is such a big one. I don't honestly, moving to a colder climate, I find myself not doing that as much, but it's just been something that I like to do, and it really does give you a lot of benefits for helping with that metabolism.
Yes, and one of my favorite tools to use is the 5 minute rule. So instead of telling yourself you have to do a 20 or 30-minute walk, just start with 5 minutes. Even 5 minutes is going to be better than 0 minutes. And you can use that 5 minute rule with anything. I can do 5 minutes of meal prep. I can take 5 minutes and cut up some vegetables, or I can take 5 minutes and throw some chicken in a crock pot. If you just start with 5 minutes, you might end up doing a little bit more. But like I said, 5 minutes is better than no minutes. And throughout the day, those little 5 minute intervals can add up to a lot of really great habits.
It's a great idea. I like that. Um, but let's talk about, it would be silly not to, what happens when it fails or when we feel that pressure, that high pressure kick in. The walking, doing something like that really, really helps. So not even just after you eat, but if you feel that cortisol coming up, you feel that stress, coming, do that as well in those moments. Because it's usually, again, when we talk about the, cognitive behavioral therapy, thought leads to emotion, leads to
Mhm.
action. Well,
Mhm.
if that thought, if something's happening and we can kind of hijack that and do that for those moments as well, you'll find that you won't necessarily do the behavior that may follow with the munchies.
Mhm. Yeah. And I took an emotional eating course a few years ago, and I learned that these emotions typically only last about 90 seconds. So if you can just sit with it, it's sort of like a wave, and a wave will come up, it'll crest, and then it'll crash, it'll come back down again. So if you can just sit with those emotions and feel it, I mean, that's the first step, just
Mm-hmm.
pausing and feeling the emotion. If you can name the emotion, that's
That's a
even
big one.
better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are able to name that emotion, then maybe you can start digging a little bit and figuring out, where does that come from? Is it something that happened during the day? Is it something that happened sometime in your childhood? You can start digging a little bit into that and figuring out where that stems from.
The moment that you step out of the emotion and become the observer
Mhm.
and become the person that's like interested and curious. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to do that now in hard times where I'm feeling that emotion, I'm feeling that hard time. I start to get curious about it and question why. And a lot of the times in that process, I can see either a different perspective, I can understand either I'm being a little bit over exaggerating on something or, what it is. But really, that stepping out and being the observer,
Mhm.
especially in a season like this where the emotions are at some
Mhm.
point in the month, or you're going to feel them. I find that's very helpful.
Yeah. I think the holidays are a time where we have a lot of expectations,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it's a lot of stress, like we've been talking about. And that's when these rigid routines that we set up for ourselves fall apart.
Yeah.
And we can't expect things to be perfect. I mean, that sounds great when life is calm and we're able to stick to a schedule, but being flexible is key during the holidays.
Mm-hmm. It really is because there's so many variables. There's so many things that can change. You have all these different people. Many times you have the extended families now, and you're trying to coordinate things. And really, anger is when an expectation is not met. So if
Mhm.
you're, in a situation where you're really hoping to spend time with a certain family over the holidays and it doesn't work out, then of course, then that can build up and then you have to be a little more flexible. So just having that mindset out of the gate where, these are tentatively my plans, but things may change. I'm flexible, on what's going to happen. And again, I become curious. I wonder what's going to happen. I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm just going to have fun wherever I am and just change my mindset. It
Yeah.
really helps.
Yeah. And when you allow for some flexibility in your day and your structure,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a little more breathing room to explore your why you're doing all of this in the first place. So I think we should talk about that, like reconnecting to our purpose instead of, punishing ourselves for not having the perfect whatever, the perfect holiday dinner or the perfect Christmas tree, whatever
Yeah.
it is that
Yeah.
your high expectations are holding.
That's also very important. We have especially people that are Christmas is this big thing. And I admit I'm one of those. I love Christmas. I've always loved just the feeling, the magic of it. And yes, of course, it's also a time where that opens up. You become more vulnerable. If
Hmm.
if you want something, if you want the family to all be together and get along, and as soon as there's a hiccup and you're like, what? I just like I wanted this so badly. So yeah, you have to be flexible in this time because it's actually doing you the favor. Because a lot of the times that overindulging or when we get off track or just throw in the towel for whatever we are trying to accomplish in life usually happens when we get knocked off track
Hmm.
by an emotion of some sort, pain, hurt from a family member. So if you have a plan for that and you just open up your mindset that you're choosing to be flexible, you're okay with whatever happens, you're going to just make the best of whatever comes your way. If you have that mindset, then expectations can't be, you know, affected. At that point, it's like if you have that curiosity, exciting mindset of I wonder what's going to happen, it just I don't know. It's the way I cope these days. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're finding that you're in that motivation dip, reconnecting to your why can really help you bring
Yeah,
back um, your reasons for doing the things, your reasons for your health goals. And one really good question to ask yourself is, how do I want to feel in January?
it's a good one.
And um, what kind of support does my body need today? The other day, we had a weekend of a couple of we had a church party and then we had company in town, and both nights we had dessert. And I was feeling kind of gross by about Tuesday, and so I stopped at the store and I just bought a whole bunch of produce. I bought some egg whites so that I could make some egg white omelets for breakfast, and I bought some stuff that I can make a nice high protein, high vegetable soup for my lunches. And the last couple of days, I've been eating those things and I felt so much better. So even if you are in that motivation dip, it doesn't mean that you have to stay off track for the rest of the season. You
Yeah.
can incorporate things throughout your day that support your long-term goals.
I do have to mention I used to be the type of person that I meal prepped. Meal prepping has actually always been my weakness in terms as a trainer. It has been the thing that I don't like to do as much. Everybody has a thing. So I learned to adapt to that and know that especially when my mind's going off or I'm having a difficult time in life, whatever that is, that I'm not typically the type of person that will stop at the grocery store when I'm feeling low to go stock up on fruits and vegetables. I used to be, but I'm just being realistic nowadays, going, you know what? Unfortunately, with life circumstances and what I've gone through, my brain doesn't do that anymore. However, I have a backup plan for that. So I have invested a bit more on good greens, organic, that if I'm feeling it and I know that I don't have what I like to tell my brain the time, even though I know it's an excuse, I will have a backup plan. I have fruits and veggies cut up for a smoothie in the freezer. So if you're the type of person that when you're having a hard time, you may not nourish yourself to that, which we all should, but I'm just being realistic. There's a lot of people that don't just have a backup plan with that. So extra protein, I have my collagen, I have My creatine for muscle energy. I make sure I have BCAAs throughout my day, especially the times that I know my nutrition is not at its best. I take things like BCAAs to kind of fill in those protein gaps when I miss. So there's so many different life hacks when around nutrition, because the reality of it is that the harder you are on yourself, your nervous system will feel it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're already on high alert, which most of us are in the holidays, your nervous system's taking a hit. Now, let's be transparent. We did a little grounding here before this episode. We needed to do that. So, to learn how to regulate your nervous system in times when you need it is, uh, I can't even say enough wonderful things about it and what it's done for my life personally.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to be an expert in this. You don't
No.
have to pay money for it. Just close your eyes for 5 minutes and take some deep breaths.
Mm-hmm.
That's one easy, quick thing you can do. Of course, there are a lot of ways to ground yourself and to calm your nervous system, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be complicated. It doesn't have to cost money. Um,
Literally, my two faves: breath work, grounding, feel your feet on the floor, be mindful, think of what you're feeling in the moment and focus on your breath. It's as simple as that. A
yeah.
longer exhale than an inhale, with a little burst on the inhale on the top. Fastest breath work to get your get into your parasympathetic nervous system. And this one, butterfly effect, the butterfly hug, bilateral stimulation, brings down that nervous system. So just learning what quickly brings you down is so valuable in times that you're stressed out in. Because let's be honest, what is the purpose of our brain? Well, what does it think the purpose is? Safety. It always wants to feel safe. So your goal in any situation that you are not being your best in, or having the best willpower, or whatever your scenario in, if your initial goal is to calm your nervous system, that alone will give you more motivation, because it's going to stop your brain from being irrational, and it's going to give you that part of your brain that's logical, which is your prefrontal cortex. But you
Mhm.
can't access that if you're uptight and you're fearful and you're angry or whatever. You can't, it's not going to work. So just to
Yeah.
be mindful of that, that's where your willpower sits, essentially, where you can regulate that nervous system. So understand that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, do you have anything else to add before we
I
finish up?
I think we're good, my friend.
Yeah, that was great. So if you are in a motivation dip right now, nothing's wrong with you. Your body is just asking for a different kind of support.
And that support comes through small actions, flexible routines, and listening to your nervous system. You don't have to wait for motivation to magically return, because it's not. You can rebuild gently, one tiny step at a time.
Yes. And to help you, we've created a momentum tracker, and you can download that at where you listen to our podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to see you next week for the last episode of the holiday comeback. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us on the comeback season. Please remember, the conversations we share here are for informational and motivational purposes only. We are not licensed medical professionals, and this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace guidance from your doctor or your healthcare provider. Always consult your healthcare team before making changes to your nutrition, your fitness, or your mental health routines. Your health and well-being comes first, and we want you to move forward safely with the right support for your journey.